PCWizKid's Tech Talk. Today I've got a great motherboard from ASUS, the ROG STRIX B660-A Gaming. This has obviously Wi-Fi 6 in it, D4 because it supports DDR4 instead of DDR5. So why this board, you're probably thinking? That's old tech. Well, guess what? This one actually supports the latest 13th gen Intel CPU. That's right. So that's what I'm going to review here today. That's why I got this board, to show you that you can reuse your DDR4 memory, you can reuse your old graphics card, and later on upgrade to the latest and greatest graphics card, and still have the greatest performance from a 13th gen CPU on this board. So, great package, obviously, as you would expect from the ASUS lineup. This is a mid-range board. It's not their highest end, but of course it supports 12th and 13th gen 1700 socket CPU. You know, with those 4 slots there for your DDR4 memory, you can put up to 128 gigs of memory. Should you get a different processor that has integrated graphics, well, you can use the rear expansion, the rear slots there, I/O ports, but I prefer discrete graphics card, of course, and using the M.2 slots here underneath those heat sinks. Very sweet. You've got 3 actually slots there, M.2, so should you have a whole bunch of leftover NVMEs, you can have all those installed very nicely. Of course, this supports PCI Express 5 for your graphics card, but again, on this board, I'm migrating over an EVGA 3060 Ti, so I'm going to use that. Of course, it's going to go up to PCI Express 4 to utilize the capabilities of the card, but then again, I'm set to upgrade and be ready for later on when prices drop for other graphics cards. So there you go. Now at the rear, like I said, for the I/O ports, you've got a whole bunch of slots there for your USBs and the Wi-Fi 6, which is great. I really look forward to using the Wi-Fi 6 on all systems from now on, because there's a huge difference there, and it's very convenient. Now again, like I said, on the back panel, the I/O ports, here's the list of different types of connections. Should you want that, just pause the screen. And well, what else can I tell you? I love the looks of this board. I gotta say, I love the silver white finish on it, the frosted look on it. It's very sweet, cool to look at. I'm going to be putting it in a white case to match, okay? And bringing over, again, old components and new components. I'm going to mix and match a little bit on this board. So it's a great thing to think about. You know, you don't have to break the bank. Reuse some of the components that you have. So DDR4 memory, your older graphics card. I've got an Area 51 thermal take case. It's a mammoth, a huge case. I've got a massive Arctic Freezer 2 420, the largest of the all-in-one CPU coolers that I'm going to be using this, but everything is running so quiet with all the fans, as you can see right there. You know, I have things sandwiched in a push-pull format as well. 3 fans at the top, you can see there from Thermaltake, the 120 millimeter RGB fans as well. So everything is kind of working all together. Yes, the board supports RGB, of course, and ARGB, so you've got all the support there to color coordinate everything as you want it. I thought I'd go for a winter type of cool theme here. Now, for the benchmarks, well, we're going to start off with, you know, the power and the temperature. So on idle, 30 degrees Celsius, 86 Fahrenheit. You can see there the wattage, 17 watts. On full load, it shoots up to around 63 degrees Celsius, 145 Fahrenheit. Very respectable. This CPU cooler is doing a terrific job, I swear. Really nice. And I can run this all day if I wanted overclocked at over 5 gigahertz, but I will try not to. For these benchmarks, I'm going to run it on auto, so I'm not going to overclock anything. I'm just going to let the ASUS AI and the XMP memory profile do its thing, and let it run the way it wants to run. Okay, so that's the way it is. Just plop the 13th gen CPU in there, the 13600KF, and let it go. Now, again, I'm not trying to break the bank here. Yes, the processor is probably one of the most expensive parts, apart from the graphics card, but that's pretty much it. You can see here, I'm going to start off with the CPU Z or Z benchmarks for single thread, and then the multi-thread. You can see my score there at the top of 828 compared to all of these other CPUs. Of course, they're not running necessarily on this board, but nevertheless, mine outperforms all of those, and that's all I really care, is seeing that the performance that I'm getting is better than previous gens by a mile. And that's what I want to see here. And you can see that it just takes off with 20 threads. Wow. I mean, the uses for this system and this CPU are terrific. Should you want to do graphics editing, multitasking, have a whole bunch of monitors open, multiple things at the same time. To think about an Intel Core i5 CPU being able to do that, not having to get an i7 or an i9, is really something that you got to think about here, because you think about I need an i7 at least if I'm going to do multi-threading, a lot of multitasking stuff. Well, not anymore, not with this 13th gen. It's really efficient. Those cores that they've got, both the performance and the efficient cores, are really working much, much better than previous gens, I think. And you can really utilize that now and see the difference, especially when you compare the results that I'm getting here with this processor, with this B660, which is a mid-range board compared to a Z690, okay? So my scores are actually pretty darn good when you think about it. I didn't have to necessarily go out and spend extra money and use DDR5 either. Now, when we do these types of motherboard reviews, I like to concentrate on the CPU the most, because that's what's integrated and affected by the most when we do benchmarks. The motherboard, the CPU, and the memory, those three things really work in unison. So CPU mark is what I look at. I look at to see, okay, 38310 is what I got. How well did I perform compared to these others? And you can see here that I beat also the 13600K, as you can see right there. And again, I'm not overclocking. I'm not overclocking it. It's still running at the default settings, okay? Now, when you go to get a board like this, like I said, you do have the option of getting the DDR5 version, should you want to get the B660 DDR5 version. But then you'd have to go out and buy DDR5 memory. Why do that? Now you can just get and reuse your DDR4, right? And just go with that for now. You can see here on the ASUS 64 CPU Queen benchmarks, the score that I got compared to these other CPUs on those other types of motherboards. So very nice. Okay, you can pause the screen at any time here if I'm going a little bit too fast. But these benchmarks really show how well you can do with a B660, right? So when you think about it, obviously if I got the latest and greatest 700 series board with DDR5, the benchmarks would be better, of course. But then you'd have to spend substantially more. So think about that when you compare this and other reviews with the same processor that I've got here, right? Is it worth spending that extra money? Do you have the money, right? So right now we're trying to save, right? So let's just think about that. I'm doing some gaming. I want the best performance that I can get. Okay, I'm going to still run it at 2K. I'm still going to run it on high settings. And I'm going to reuse my same processor, my same memory and graphics card. We're getting about 150 frames per second on average here. Again, very smooth and much better results that maybe you were getting before, right? On your previous gen CPU and board. So that's what you have to take into consideration. Now you're kind of a little bit future-proof, because with PCI 5 support on this motherboard, you can install the latest and greatest graphics card as well when the prices come down, and then get even more performance out of this board, right? Here's another game. You can see Borderlands 3. So another example, again, of great performance, right? Running things on ultra instead of high, but again, at 2K resolution, right? So we're running always everything at 2K resolution, and we're running it, again, you can see around 80, 85 frames per second on average, depending on the levels and the screens and whatever that's happening on there. But again, CPU running cool, not going over 60 degrees Celsius, which is very nice. Okay, so a couple more games here, that I wanted to show you. A variety, because everybody plays different types of games, right? So I thought I'd try different games with different engines that you could see the results that I'm getting, again, with the EVGA 3060 Ti graphics card. Keep that in mind, right? So I'm getting an average here of 83 frames per second on that one. Shadow of the Tomb Raider setup, you can see here I've got it on high settings, again 2K resolution, getting about 139 frames per second on this, and very smooth again. Very nice graphics, as you can see right there. and no complaints from me, because I wouldn't be able to tell, really, to be honest, between 130, 140, or 150 frames per second. Obviously, if it dropped below 100, you might be able to see that, but I'm not seeing any lag, any bottlenecks between this processor, the graphics card. They seem to be working very nicely together here. Some more results here, as you can see, in a different format. Okay, so you can see a little bit the temperatures. And on Strange Brigade, running it on Ultra, you can see here I'm getting about 200 frames per second on average. You can see right there. Again, very smooth results. And, you know, depends on the game, right? Some games on Ultra, you get really high results. Other graphic engines from other games really put things to the test. Here you've got Fortnite, for example, again, running it on epic settings, and of course on 2K resolution and 170 frames per second on average, roughly, as you can see right there. Very smooth and great looking graphics. A lot of color eye candy, I guess you could say. So not bad results. I really have to stress that what I like the most about this board is that you can use both the 12th gen and 13th gen CPU. You can reuse your DDR4 memory. You've got lots of options and expansion for the latest and greatest USB, PCI Express, M.2 slots. Great looks on that board. Wi-Fi 6, great speeds on that. Great BIOS design and everything as you would expect from ASUS, so that you could overclock and get things running the way you want. Definitely recommend this board from ASUS. I'll add the latest pricing in the description below. I'd like to thank ASUS for providing it. Comment, let me know what you think. And again, thank you for watching.